Zipper rolls out to the right, pitches off to Taylor, and Taylor's to the 20, down to the 15, down to the 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Touchdown, Billy Taylor! Touchdown, Billy Taylor! Billy Taylor scored a touchdown from 21 yards out. The crowd goes berserk. It was November 22nd, 1969. That they came to Barry, Michigan, all dressed in maize and blue. The words were said, the prayers were read, and everybody cried. But when they closed the coffin, there was someone else inside. Oh, they came to Barry, Michigan, but Michigan wasn't dead. And when the game was over, it was someone else instead. 11 Michigan Wolverines put on the gloves of gray, and as the organ played the victors, they laid Woody Hayes away. Under center is Wangler at the 45. He goes back. He's looking for a receiver. He throws downfield to Carter. Who's got it better than us? Nobody!
Welcome to the Michigan Man Podcast on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew, for Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. The year is winding down, and our Wolverines are wrapping up their preparations for the Citrus Bowl. This week we have two shows for you. Our game day segment today with Angelique Chengelis, and then on Thursday morning we'll air our visitors segment. My guest on that show will be Brady Ackerman, who hosts the Florida pre- and post-game shows on the Gator Radio Network, and is also the sideline reporter on the network during the games. Before we get to the Angel of the Big House, a few Wolverine news and notes to get us started. Michigan's fun-free bowl week reminds players of Jim Harbaugh's fall camp. Pretty much all business, and has been since camp started in December. Players say they're going to have a little bit of fun, but the focus is on the game. Jim Harbaugh has them focused on the Citrus Bowl and getting victory number 10. Michigan offensive line commit Ben Bredesen says he is ready to compete at left guard next fall. He's focusing on getting stronger. He's down at the U.S. Army All-Star game right now and made those comments to reporters. He, of course, will be coming in as an early enrollee, and from what people say, he's going to have a good shot at cracking the starting lineup or at least fighting for playing time. Michigan freshman Brian Cole is impressing at safety in bowl preparation. As you know, Brian was a very talented wide receiver, all-state wide receiver from Saginaw, played in the first couple of games and then was injured. And as happens a lot of times during bowl preparation, young players are moved around if they're very talented, very versatile, to see if they can help anywhere else on the field. So Brian, who knows, might not be a wide receiver in the future. He is very impressive during bowl preparations at safety. Jake Rudock is completely healthy and completely comfortable in Michigan's offense, he says, as the bowl game approaches. We all wondered how serious that injury was he received in the Ohio State game, but he, according to Angelique Chengelis, and we talk about this in our interview today, he recovered pretty quickly, and he's been full go for a couple of weeks now. And he is ready for a big final game as a Michigan Wolverine. Michigan has plans to extend Jedd Fisch's contract. That's what Jim Harbaugh is saying. Jedd is the quarterback coach, has NFL experience, college experience, and we know it's going to be a battle at quarterback next year, so we need someone like Jedd Fisch developing and choosing who the next starting quarterback is going to be along with Coach Harbaugh. Don't forget you can call our listener line 24/7 with your Maize and Blue thoughts at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Or you can email me anytime at the Michigan Man Podcast at yahoo.com. I would enjoy hearing from you. The Angel of the Big House is up next on today's Game Day segment here on the Michigan Man on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. With us on our game day segment this week as we get ready for the Citrus Bowl on Friday, New Year's Day, Michigan beat writer Angelique Chengelis from the Detroit News. Welcome, Angelique.
Mike, thank you for having me. I hope you had a good Christmas.
It was very nice, and I hope you did too. And now you're down there in that beautiful, warm weather and fighting off a cold.
Isn't that the way it is? I mean, it's just my luck. You know, I've gone to so many bowl games. I remember '97. Speaking of illnesses, I don't think I've been sicker. And I'm walking around the lobby. You know, Lloyd had taken them out so early, and I'm just dying in the lobby. He says hello. I say hello. He hears my voice is like many octaves lower than it should be, and he sent me to see the team doctor. And I go in to see Dr. O'Connor, and over his shoulder, so he's looking down my throat to see what's going on. Over his shoulder is Brian Greasy staring down my throat too to see what's all the bad happening in there. So that was my exciting bowl sickness story.
Well, hopefully you have a better story to tell after this. The team got in there on Saturday night. Angelique attended some meetings. Then Sunday hit the practice field in pads. What's the practice schedule like for the team this week?
Well, they're pretty much sticking to the same time. They're going again today, and then the rest of the week. About 1:30 to 3:30, and then I'm doing some media obligations. They'll do one day at the park at Disney World. They're talking to these guys. It is very. You hear this every year. Oh, it's a business trip. It's a business trip. But this does feel like that. They're keeping to a very precise schedule. Joe Bolden was saying that's been the norm for Jim Harbaugh. You know, he said they practice 20 hours on the nose, Bolden said. They do this and that just so, specifically timed. And it's been no different during the bowl practices. So it is, what's different is the temperature, though, Mike, as you can imagine. It's about 85. And what's very interesting is the forecast for game day really drops considerably, more like a mid-fall day in Ann Arbor, about 65. So they're practicing hard in this high heat and very high humidity to get ready for a game that'll probably feel more like an Ann Arbor day.
I was talking just before I chatted with you. I had Brady Ackerman, the sideline guy and the pre and post game host on the Gator Network, and I asked him. I said, "What's the weather going to be like, Brady?" And he said, "Well, believe it or not, it's been hotter than you know what down here." All of December, and it's going to be closer to Michigan weather maybe come game day.
Oh, it's strange, and it's really just for that day, maybe 2 days, and then it goes back to this really hot weather. So, maybe they just wanted to make Michigan feel a little more comfortable here, so they brought mid football season weather to Orlando.
Well, that's good football weather for Michigan coming from, although it hasn't been too bad up here for practice. I didn't even hear Jim Harbaugh say if the team stayed indoors as far as their bowl prep up here, or they actually, I would think they were able to get outside with the weather we've been having.
Oh, I would think so, and especially for the kickers, that's really important. And Kenny Allen was talking about kicking. He loves this kind of weather, and he said sometimes during the football season your foot hurts when you make contact with the ball, and I just said, oh come on, Kenny, it was never that cold during the football season. He said, yeah, that's true. But but I think for just in general, it feels good for them to be able to practice in this kind of warm weather. And I agree that they were able to get outside in Ann Arbor, and that is so important for the kickers in particular.
Well, we heard Sunday when the team got down there. Actually, they got down Saturday night, but we heard on Sunday that Derek Green did not make the trip because of internal matters. Nothing much more was said about that, was there, Angelique?
No, Mike, and that's been pretty consistent. Jim, when Jim Harbaugh doesn't want to reveal anything right away, it's either he's working through something or it's internal matters. And we've seen the internal matters work out differently, where the players, it was Ty Isaac earlier in the season, and I believe Lawrence Marshall, and they had internal matters they had to work through, and we're back on the depth chart, back out on the field. And, you don't get a sense one way or the other how this will turn out. But Derek Green hasn't dressed for a game the last 3 games, since the Indiana was the first he didn't dress. So it's hard to say what's going on with that situation, but it hasn't been good for Derek Green, that's for sure.
Well, as far as injuries go, Jake Rudock is reportedly at full speed. We're not sure about Jabril Peppers yet, are we?
No, and I think Harbaugh is getting a little annoyed with questions about that. And I asked him, if you say he's out there, that doesn't technically mean he's practicing, and he just doesn't really like being pushed on that. And he was out there, but he wasn't practicing. And looked, it appeared he wasn't in pads like the rest of his teammates the first practice. And he's not ruling him out. He's not saying he's not playing. He's not saying he is playing. He's just not saying anything, Jim Harbaugh, about Pepper's status. And I think if he's not practicing, though, that cannot bode well. But that some coaches have a certain way of approaching whether a player's injured and how much he practices during the game week if that player is allowed to play. And I don't know what Jim's is in particular. And if Peppers hasn't been practicing at all, then I can't see him playing. But again, I just don't know what Harbaugh's theory is on that. If he feels like he can get back into it and can be effective, then yeah, he could play.
The only thing he really said about injuries is that he was pretty darn happy with the overall health of the team.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and really hasn't had any other issues. Jake Rudock, I think he really recovered very quickly. It was his left shoulder, and about a week, maybe a little bit more than a week later, he was throwing, and opposite shoulder, but you still need that, when you're throwing, and the motion is balanced. And so he seemed to rebound very quickly from that hit in the Ohio State game. And other than that, I think that this the bowl, Harbaugh was asked about how different it is to prepare for a bowl, and he just sort of, I don't think it's joking. He just said, you get more weeks. Well, I think more importantly than the preparation, you get weeks to heal, and that's been important for those guys. That second half of the season, they definitely take more of a beating, I think, and just because it piles on, it's game after game, and certainly they get tired and adds up late in the season. So I think these 3 weeks off, although they've practiced, has given them a chance to get healthier.
With us here on our game day preview of the Citrus Bowl is Michigan beat writer Angelique Chengelis from the Detroit News. Angelique, Michigan fans are, of course, optimistic after this season and would like to kick off the new year with a W. But, of course, Florida has the same idea. In many ways, these two teams have mirrored each other this year, Angelique. Very good defenses, but both teams have offenses that can sputter.
Oh, yeah. That's definitely how I've talked about their defenses. I really think that they are not mirror images, but very similar. And, how odd is it that they were both a year earlier, they were coordinated by DJ Durkin, and this year Michigan's defense was coordinated by Durkin. And now we know, of course, he's moved on to Maryland, and Greg Madison has slipped back into the role that he's very familiar with and confident running this defense. But, yeah, offensively, and again, the irony was Doug Nussmeier running the offense, and he was here with Brady Hoke for that last season. And for Nussmeier, probably not the kind of similarities he wants. The offense of Florida is ranked very, 109th, just like Michigan was his season there. And I think what's different though, Mike, and I won't say that they mirror each other entirely, because I think that you measure Rudock, and I think that Michigan has some advantages offensively. And I'm not saying that Michigan's offense is any great shake, but I think that they've got some advantages offensively over Florida, and I think one of them is Jake Rudock. I don't know that we can say running back wise, because I don't know where Michigan's going to finally get a running game. If Peppers can't go, and is Devion going to be healthy enough to carry the load? We don't know. We haven't seen that much productivity from the run game, but I do think that Rudock's a difference in this offense and gives them an advantage. And certainly he's got some skill players like Jehu Chesson and Amaro Darbo and Jake Butt who can make a difference for them offensively.
Well, Florida's struggles on offense start at quarterback. Treon Harris has struggled throwing the ball. He's been sacked 29 times, which is mind-boggling to me in 7 games. which means the Gators need to run to make something happen on offense to set up what little passing game they do have. And you would think when you're game planning, that plays right into Michigan's game plan.
Well, you would think, though, Mike, they've given up so many rushing yards, though. I mean, from really, we mentioned the Indiana game earlier. From that game on, after Ryan Glasgow went out, it became more difficult for them to stop the run. And I think that exposed with Glasgow out, it exposed that the linebackers, Michigan's linebackers, are not that strong and not physically strong. You know what I mean? It just that they're not as, what's the word that defensive coordinators like? Stout. And, I think that exposed them a little bit. And Joe Bolden talked this week from the Bowl side about, he watched the Ohio State film. He knows how many tackles he missed. He knows that he wasn't good in that game. And I think that's part of it, is understanding that you've got a lot of ground to make up in this one game. And for someone like him, it's his last college game. And does that make you suddenly a better tackler? Does that make you a better linebacking core? I don't know. But that has been a weakness, and that is something that Florida can challenge.
Well, an interesting point in the game plan, and you just mentioned the offensive coordinator to Florida is Doug Nussmeier, and we all know he was here last year. And if anyone has a good feel for the personnel and the type of defense Michigan's going to run, it's Doug Nussmeier.
Well, it is, and I think that Florida also has a good understanding of how that defense operates, because it experienced it with DJ Durkin. And I don't think this defense is vastly different from the way he ran things at Florida, and similar personnel. And I think he knows what Greg Madison does and what he likes to do. And so I do think that in both senses it plays into their hands. Michigan's defense has an idea what Doug Nussmeier likes to do. Doug Nussmeier has an idea what maybe not what DJ Durkin likes to do, but people on that staff know, and he also knows what Greg Madison likes to do. So that'll make it interesting, no doubt. But I think if you're talking about similarities across the board, and you're absolutely right. And I just think the big difference is I think Jake Rudock's just the better quarterback, and I think that makes a difference for Michigan going into this one.
Angelique, if you've seen Florida play this year, particularly on offense, you might wonder, hey, how did these guys win 10 games? The SEC East Division, and then played Alabama, I thought, pretty tough in the SEC championship game, and the answer is their defense. This might be as good of defense as Michigan has seen this year.
Oh, I agree. And they've seen some good defenses. I mean, you can argue that Penn State's defense was pretty good. I mean, Carl Nassib was absent, but they're a pretty good defense. And Ohio State's defense is awfully good. This is going to be a very good defense. I'm sure it'll be weird. It'll almost be like Michigan players playing against each other, against ones on ones. And how often does that can happen? and it might feel like that. But yeah, you're right. I mean, that is why Florida has succeeded. I mean, people might want to downplay their division in the SEC. I guess you could do that, but their defense is that good, and I think that's going to be the challenge for Tim Drevno, and we have not had a chance to speak to him yet down in Florida. And they don't reveal game plans, as you know, Mike. So I don't know what his approach will be to this defense. But I think that they've had some success here and there offensively, and it just, to me, there's still some gaps, and that primarily is in the run game. And I'm going to be really interested to see if Michigan how they solve that right now. If those guys, Drake Johnson's down here, are those guys ready to finally be the contributors that people expected them to be all season? And a high ankle sprain definitely hobbled Devion Smith, and Drake Johnson maybe wasn't quite ready coming back from the injury. So maybe this extra time gives those guys a chance to finally fulfill what people's expectations were.
Well, Jim McElwain has done for Florida what Jim Harbaugh has done for Michigan, given the fan base's confidence. They are on the way back. We're going to see two up-and-coming teams in this game, Angelique, on New Year's Day, who would rather not be in the Citrus Bowl for a while after this year.
You're right, and it is interesting because they have a similar trajectory, and from last year to this year, and probably, I'm guessing Florida hasn't been written about, and McElwain hasn't been written about as much as Jim Harbaugh in Michigan this year. Just a hunch, but but similar in the sense that yeah, they've both been able to bring programs back to life and definitely have higher aspirations. And I think getting to the SEC championship game was big for McElwain in Florida, and getting to this point for Harbaugh was big. And they were definitely in contention. You could you can say what you want about the Michigan State game and certainly Ohio State, where they were soundly beaten, but they did have a chance to move on, to be somewhere different than Orlando, someplace more more important, I guess is the way to describe it. But I think both teams have had that similar route, and definitely they both seem like they're in very good hands at this stage.
Before he got down to Florida, Jim Harbaugh talked about, I think it was at the banquet, he mentioned this too, the 10 would be a nice number. Mm-hmm. That would be very nice. And Michigan doesn't need to win this game to keep the momentum rolling, but it sure would be a positive for recruiting and for the guys coming back next year, wouldn't it?
Oh, it absolutely is, Mike. I mean, they talk about the springboard. It is. And, it's 10 wins. Michigan hasn't, in this last decade, only done it a couple times. And 10 wins has a little bit more cachet and looks better for recruits and looks better for these kids who are coming back and have to get back to work pretty soon. I mean, there's not much rest after this bowl game. And you feel a little more motivated. You feel like you have more promise for next season when you see 10 wins. Now, if they don't win, it's not going to devastate them and they're not going to, fold, but it does give them a little bit more confidence, a little bit more swagger, and they have to rebound from that Ohio State game too. I think that's very important to them, Mike. I mean, I think like Joe Bolden said before, they got their butts kicked, and you can't describe it any other way, and they need to erase that. They need to move past that, and I think that's put a little extra motivation for them going into this game as well.
Well, we talked about the fact that this is a business trip for Michigan. Joe Bolden was talking about that on Sunday and some of the other players, but Coach Harbaugh is going to let them have a little bit of fun while they're down there, isn't he?
Oh, yeah, a little bit of fun. I mean, they have a playroom set up at the hotel where they can play all the different video games and air hockey, that kind of stuff. And let's see, I'm looking out my hotel room, and there is a roller coaster. So I have a feeling that they will be going over there and hitting those rides a little bit. But yeah, it's funny. You talk to the seniors, and that stuff they've had their bowl experience a couple of years ago, and they know what it's like to do all these things. And at some point, they sort of say, "Well, okay, this is nice, but we're here to play football and practice." So some of them I think they think that stuff's a little childish, and so I think more of the younger players and the guys who haven't played much will probably take advantage of all the fun, and the older players who are looking forward to a 10th win are taking this a little more seriously and probably won't be the ones going to the park.
Well, final question for you, Angelique. The Citrus Bowl doesn't always sell out. I remember many New Year's days watching the game, and there were chunks of open seats. But it did sell out in just a couple of days this year. I think both fan bases are just really excited about this matchup, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. And after watching so many of these bowl games on TV where there's been like 30 people there, this will be a nice change to see a full house. And, I mean, they both sold out so quickly. I mean, Michigan got its allotment of, I believe, 11,000 and then had asked for more and sold those within an hour. When they first made them available, and Florida had similar success, and then the Citrus Bowl right away only had single tickets available that day that they went on sale. So yeah, I mean, this is Michigan hasn't been to a warm weather bowl game like this. Certainly Arizona was, but in the same time zone where people can drive and get there, and there are a lot of Michigan alums in Florida, so that makes it easier. I've seen several former players who live here, like Rod Payne and Sam Sword, and they're planning on being here. Drew Henson. I mean, these guys all live in Florida. This is an easy trip for them, and I think that's the case for a lot of Michigan fans. This is, it's an easy drive from Michigan to Florida, and certainly it's an easy drive for Florida fans from Gainesville and around the state, and it's a nice matchup. And I think that it'll be nice to see a bowl game for a change. I think we'll see them at the playoff games, of course, full houses. But for a bowl game like this, I think that's it's not going to be nice to see.
With us today on our Michigan Game Day preview of the Citrus Bowl has been Michigan beat writer Angelique Chengelis from the Detroit News. As always, Angelique, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. Get rested, get better, and enjoy the rest of the week down there.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it. Happy New Year to you, and thank you for having me on this season.
Wolverine Quick Hits is next here on The Michigan Man on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V-Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. On Wolverine Quick Hits today, I'll keep it short because we have another show for you on Thursday. My guest on our visitors segment will be Brady Ackerman from the Gator Radio Network. Brady does the pre- and post-game shows and is the sideline reporter during the game. So for a Gator perspective on the game, make sure you join us on Thursday. It will also be our final show of 2015 and wrap up 6 years of doing the Michigan Man. But don't worry, we aren't going away. Season 7 starts next week as we recap the Citrus Bowl, and then in coming weeks give you the best podcast coverage, at least we think so, of Michigan basketball, hockey, softball, and baseball. And football is never far from our mind, so we'll continue with recruiting updates and any football-related news through the winter, leading right up to spring practice. As I always say, just because football season is over doesn't mean the show stops. I'll be here every week, and from time to time, I'll have a Michigan Man Extra show for you that I hope you'll find at least a bit interesting. So as we draw the curtain on a very interesting 2015, I say thank you to each and every one of you for joining me each week for, as my wife says, my little podcast that takes up a lot of my time. But doing the show is a labor of love, and I hope you at least find it a bit interesting from time to time. That will do it for today. We'll be right back here at you on Thursday morning with our visitor show, so don't forget to tune us in. Until then, have a great Wolverine week, everyone. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Take care, and as always, go blue. Thanks for joining us today on The Michigan Man, here on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V-Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. Our listener lines are open 24/7 for your calls at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Or email us at themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. That's themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. The Michigan Man Podcast is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan, and is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue!